everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Happy Thanksgiving for everyone that celebrates. For those of you that don't celebrate, happy Thursday. Welcome to another video. Today, we're going to be going over a complete guide to astral magic in Wizard101. Now, I expect this is going to be especially helpful to people who are just starting on console or people who are coming back and don't know all of the later game astral spells that have been added since maybe they've stopped playing the game. But what I want to go over this video is I want to go over in the beginning, I want to talk about the different schools of astral magic, what they're all good for, what they're used for. Then I'm going to go world by world for all of the different astral magic spells and talk about all of the ones that are available and which ones are worth getting. Now, I'd just like to say, for some reason, I seem to have a penchant for missing things despite them being right in front of me on the wiki. So if somehow I miss something in this video, it is going to be pinned directly at the very top of the comment section. So look there right now, see if I missed anything. If I didn't, good job past me. If I did, that sucks. Anyways, let's get into the video. So starting off, astral magic was introduced in late 2010 with Celestia. Now with the world, KingsIsle decided that they needed to add more schools of magic that added more utility to the game. So what they came up with was the Astral Schools. There is the Sun School, the Moon School, and the Star School. The Sun School is primarily enchants. Now what these do is these will enchant your spells to have different effects that are beneficial to it. The most well-known, and I'm sure all of you guys know this, is the enchants that will boost the damage of the cards, such as Epic, Tough, Gargantuan, Colossal, all of those. However, there are also things like Accurate, which can boost the accuracy of the cards. Now, these do not stack, so you cannot use Accurate and then use a damage buff. You can only use one or the other, so do keep that in mind. Most people do not use the Accurate cards. Next up is the Star School, which is known for their auras. The aura spells placed on either you or the enemy will, for the complete duration of that aura, activate that effect. So for example, Fortify here puts a minus 15% incoming damage on all spells cast on you for the next 4 rounds. Finally, with astral magic, there is the Moon School. The Moon School allows you to polymorph and generally transform into other creatures and cast spells from their spell pool instead. There are also the Moon School spells later on in Khrysalis that allow you to transform and do some damage. Generally, the Moon School is considered to be widely pretty useless. I'll still go over the spells that you need to know this video and what you can train, but generally I don't think that there's anything from the Moon School that's going to be particularly interesting. So with that intro, enough background, let's get into the spells from each world and what you need to know. Alright, I bet that most of you expected the first place for us to go to be Celestia, but first we need to take a quick detour to Diego the Duel Master right here in the commons, because he actually allows you to train the first ever astral magic that you can technically train in this game, which is Conviction, which you can train literally immediately once you find Diego the Duel Master here. Now, Conviction is an interesting spell because what it allows you to do is it puts a plus 90% stun resistance and plus 20% crit block for 4 rounds. While this won't be useful for most bosses, any boss that will stun you habitually with a cheat or that will spam spells that stun you, this could be useful for. So specifically in Darkmoor, Yevgeny, the commonly used strategy is to Conviction first round to stun block all of the spells he spams that will stun you. So Conviction is a very useful spell to train, and I figured I would mention it right away at the beginning of this video in the Wizard City section. Now let's move to Celestia, which most of you will expect. Alright, so starting off, we have the Star School spells, which to train all of them, you can come to the Star School trainer here in the Stellarium in the District of the Stars, and this Star School trainer right here will allow you to train all of them. And you can see here, I've already trained Amplify, which is plus 15% to all spells for 4 rounds. I've already trained that, so it's not here, but it will be here for you. Now, the spells that are at the Star School trainer are Fortify, Amplify, Infallible, Attenuate, Starfall, Vengeance, and Empowerment. Now, I would say out of all of these, the most useful are Amplify, which I've trained, and Attenuate. Now, what these two do is obviously this is a plus 15% aura for yourself that lasts 4 rounds. This one is an offensive aura that you place on the enemy, so this is the equivalent of placing like a trap that lasts 4 rounds on the enemy, which means it can be incredibly useful for certain bosses. It's also going to be useful for bosses that don't allow traps, or certain bosses where, you know, you might not be allowed to have blades. It's just another buff that you could potentially use in a situation where it might come in handy. As for the rest of these spells, I don't think any of them are particularly good or particularly worth training, but they are all here if you want to go for them. Alright, next up for Celestia, we have the Sun School trainer here in the Floating Land. Now, as I mentioned earlier, here, there are the accuracy spells. At max, Unstoppable also gives plus 10% pierce, which is interesting. I don't think you're ever going to want to really train the Keen Eyes to Unstoppable enchants here at the Sun School Trainer, but what you will be wanting to train is all of the damage enchants. So Strong, Giant, Monstrous, and Gargantuan, which are all trained from right here. Later on, you'll be able to get the other two. All right, now in terms of actual enchants, that's pretty much it. However, in terms of other Sun School spells, there are actually more right here in the Stormriven Hall at Corsten Bloodscorn, right here to the right of Tempest Stormfist, and he sells the mutate spells. Now, none of these I think are particularly interesting. I believe you can't actually enchant them, and spell elements don't work on them, and different paths of spell elements don't work on them either. Really what they do is they just allow you to transform a spell into a different version of the same spell of a different school. Some of them have different effects, like Polar Swarm does damage over time rather than just the flat Locust Swarm's base damage. I don't think any of these are particularly worth training, but they are here if you want for some reason to train all of the Sun School spells. All right, for the final section in Celestia, we have the Moon School spells. Now, the Moon School spells are honestly incredibly useless, but I figured I'd mention them anyway. There is the Moon School Trainer over there, which gives you the Polymorph Gobbler and the Polymorph Mander. However, there is also a Moon School Trainer right here in the portico. If you head directly to the right, you can see it just down this staircase right here. Moon School Trainer that also gives the other Moon Schools. So it gives the Bandit, the Ninja, and the Dragon as well. All right, now similar with the Sun School, how there were mutate spells, the Moon School doesn't have anything unique like that, but there is another trainer that sells more spells. Right here, if you come to the Ossuary in the Stormriven and walk around to the left here, first off, the Lounging Lizard is in this little section right here. You can see him twirling his moustache all mysterious-like, but there's also Ulantor Star Mist right here that has the Polymorph Treant, Colossus, Elemental, and other Storm Elemental spells. So there are more here, and that is actually it for Celestia. That is all of the astral magic that was originally added with the Celestia update. Now overall for this section, just to wrap it up so that you know what you really want here, really I would get the damage enchants and then probably the Star School buff of Amplify and then Attenuate. I don't think anything else is particularly really worth getting. Those are the main things you want. All right, now with Zafaria, they added actually 2 more obelisks that can train you more spells. To get these obelisks, first you come to Inyanga White Stripes. I believe the first quest is at level 64, and I think the next one's at 66. Now, once you accept the first quest, Astral Weeks, they'll send you to Zamunda, and from Zamunda, you will be sent to the princess that you interact with during the main quest line, and she will basically tell you to beat up some Long Dreamer Shamans, and from there, you'll get pieces of the obelisk, you repair the obelisk, and you are then able to learn the Star School spells that obelisk trains. Now, this obelisk trains Berserk, Mend, and Cosmic Charge. Berserk is the only one that's really worth training because Berserk will be useful later on to learn Frenzy. You need it to learn Frenzy. I would train that. For the other two, not really useful. Mend can be useful if you're a life wizard who wants to heal, but Cosmic Charge isn't anything particularly worth getting. Now for the Sun School Obelisk, when you come to Inyanga White Stripes, he will give you the quest Bungle in the Jungle, which sends you to Drum Jungle, and you'll interact with Coco Smoke Sign. It's basically a repeat of the quest you did before, except instead of beating Long Dreamer Shamans, you beat Black Tusk Cultists. So basically a very similar quest. It is almost identical actually in terms of defeat and collect and repairing it, and from there you'll unlock the Sun Obelisk right at the very beginning of this street. Now this Sun School Trainer actually gives a very important upgrade in Colossal. Now Colossal, no pun intended, is a colossal upgrade because Gargantuan gives plus 225 damage on a card. This gives plus 275, so it's a plus 50 base damage upgrade. You also can get Extraordinary right here, but that is it from these. Now you need to do these quests as well, I believe, to unlock the next quest in Azteca. You should do these 2 quests because they are very important for your arsenal of astral magic. All right, this is Future Noah here to teach you about the Azteca astral magic. Now, first off, this is unlocked by 3 separate quests here in Azteca, but before you can actually start them, first off, you need to have done like the first 15 or so quests of Azteca, so keep that in mind, and you need to have done the 2 quests in Zafaria. So don't ask in the comments why I can't do this. You need to do the Zafaria ones first before you can actually unlock these. Now, there are 3 separate quests, and you unlock them sequentially. Now, the first one is unlocked at level 84 here at Tezcat 3-star called Across the Universe. This will then bring you to 3rd star on the left, and you need to actually be a solo boss for all of these quests. None of them are particularly too challenging, but they can be quite difficult if you don't know what you're doing. For most of them, I just recommend double or triple fainting into a blade, into a 7-pip AoE, and you'll be fine. Now, after you've beaten the first one at level 86, you can come here to Pakal Red Mask, and he will give you Turn Up the Sun, which once again sends you to a solo boss in Salt Meadow Swamp to unlock the Sun Obelisk. Now, finally, at level 88, Zalen Reedwalker here will give you the quest Fly Me to the Moon, which will unlock the Moon School Obelisk. Now, the Star School trainer will basically give you an upgraded version of Amplify, which I do recommend training. It's nothing insanely good, but for your school, it does give plus 25% damage, which can be quite useful in most settings. Life can also get Cycle of Life, which could be useful as well. Now, I'm sure the one that most people know is actually the Sun School trainer, because this Sun School trainer is probably the most important trainer in the entire game. So please listen to this section. You get Sharpened Blade, Potent Trap, and Primordial here. Sharpened Blade allows you to sharpen a blade, so it does plus 10% more damage. Potent Trap allows you to potent a trap to do plus 10% more damage, and Primordial allows you to add plus 100 to one healing spell, which is the equivalent of an enchant for a healing spell. Now, this is super important because this allows you to blade stack and trap stack, specifically feint stacking, which is incredibly good and the best way to do damage in this game. So the Sun Obelisk right here at level 86 is by far the most important out of all of these things to get, literally hands down. It's not even close. Now, finally, for this Moon School trainer, it just allows you to polymorph into an Ice Horn, a Jaguar, and a Terra, which I don't think are anything particularly good. Again, Moon School does kind of suck, but if you want, you can do this. You can see I haven't even done the quest, but it is an option. This next section of spells are the Shift Moon spells. Now, these are unlocked from an NPC trainer here in the Eclipse Tower in Khrysalis, and basically what these shift spells are is these are basically just moon spells that shift you into a different form and then have a basic effect. So they're basically just a regular attack card, except you shift into a thing and then you attack something, which is cool, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't think any of these cards are particularly that useful. I mean, you can look at their effects and see if any of these call to you, but I don't think any of these are going to be something that you really want. But I'd be remiss not to mention them in a video talking about astral spells. These are basically the final moon spells in the entire game as far as I know. I don't think Kaiser sells anymore in the Arcanum. So these are the last moon spells in the game. If you want some more moon spells, here's where you get them. All right, so this is the final astral trainer in the entire game. Up until this point, they've all been from different trainers scattered throughout the spiral. All of the rest of your astral magic is going to be trained from the Astral Scholar here in the Arcanum, Kaiser and Stellar Gaze. Now, immediately upon interacting with him, first off, you'll notice that every spell you haven't trained up until this point, you can train. So keep that in mind. At this point, if you missed something at some point, you can train the spells here, which is great. Now, on top of that, he also sells new level 110 spells. So he sells Radical, which is the upgraded version of Primordial. So for healers, you want to get that. He sells some new aura spells, which are interesting, but nothing particularly useful. But the main spells that you're going to want to be getting from him are Epic, which is the final upgraded version of the damage enchants. So you've been using Colossal now for about 30 to 40 levels. You can finally upgrade to Epic, which is an extra plus 25 base damage. He also sells Indemnity and Aegis, which are very important to get because these will protect your blades and feints. So if an enemy wants to remove a feint from a cheat, you can usually use Indemnity, put an Indemnity feint on it, and that will stop it from being removed. Same thing with Aegis, it protects it from things like earthquakes or things that remove your blades. The final thing you want to get from him is the spell Frenzy. Now, Frenzy is particularly good for a setting where you're going to be attacking multiple times over a short period of time. So for example, there are some bosses where it is heavily recommended, instead of blading, to use a Frenzy and then spam hits. So training Frenzy can be incredibly useful as well, and you train it here from Kaiser in the Arcanum. Now that is pretty much it for astral magic. I've gone over every single thing at every single level that you could really need to know, and all of the trainers scattered throughout the spiral. All right, for the final section of this video, I just want to mention the fact that there are 3 more astral spells that exist in the game. One you cannot get, called Cloak. Now Cloak, basically what it used to do is it would disguise a charm or a trap, and this was for PvP, so you could disguise it and the enemy wouldn't know what blade or trap it was. That was basically all it did. You cannot train this spell anymore. It does not exist as far as I know. Now the other 2 spells are Daybreaker and Nightbringer. There is a short list of bosses that drop them, I believe, from the catacombs, so you can get them from there. Now what these spells do is they're actually kind of interesting. What you can do is you can can enchant a spell and it will delay the spell 1 round and then add pips to the cost of either the first or second spell. Now, if that confuses you at all, which it is slightly confusing, so I get that. Basically, what this does is it allows you to cast 2 cards on the same turn. Now, this isn't anything particularly useful in my opinion, but it could do something like if there's a specific round you need to cast a spell before a cheat activates, you could use this to use both spells the exact same round. It is an option. Basically, again, it just delays the cast 1 round and then you can cast 2 spells on the same round. So you'll pass and then the card that you casted will cast the next round along with whatever else you pick. Again, nothing particularly interesting, but I'd be remiss not to mention them existing in the game. You can also upgrade them for spell elements. So you can see at max tier, this will delay 1 round and then add 3 pips to the first spell's cost, or same thing, except this will add 3 pips to the second spell's cost. But that is pretty much it in terms of astral magic in this game. Looking at the wiki, there is no spell that I did not go over today. So if someone says that I missed something, the wiki is just outdated and incorrect. So I tried my best. Hopefully I didn't miss anything, but otherwise that is it for today. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like at the sub button. I appreciate you guys as always. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video. Adios.